Sure.
Well, everyone, welcome back to another exciting episode of the Storybox podcast. Today, my friends, I'm delighted to welcome Alison Levine. Now, for those of you that don't know who she is, she has this pretty amazing quote on her website, which I'm going to read out for you. Then I'm going to talk about what she does, which is pretty incredible. Sometimes you look up at a mountain and think, I can't, and then you climb it anyway. I love that quote. Now, for those of you that need to know more about her, she's an adventurer, explorer, mountaineer. She's a New York Times bestselling author, leadership advisor, beer muse, filmmaker, storyteller, dog lover, empowerer, knowledge sharer, challenge taker, boundary breaker, growth enabler, impact maker, and she is also a game changer. She's a leadership expert, polar explorer, and mountaineer who is no stranger to extreme environments. She has survived sub-zero temperatures. Get that around your mind for a moment, people. Hurricane force winds, sudden avalanches, and a career on Wall Street, just to top things off. I'm not going to read anything more in your bio, but welcome so much to the Storybox podcast, Alison Levine.
Thank you, Jay. It's a pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me.
What a crazy short bio that I read out, and it keeps going. It's truly an honor to have you here. I love stories. And when your story was given to me, I immediately had to say yes, because I'm curious about all this stuff. And for my listeners, they know that I always ask this question at the beginning before we dive into all the other stuff, which is, what does success look like for you?
For me, success looks like if I can get somebody to laugh a little and think differently about the challenges in their lives. If I can do that just one time every day, that feels like success to me. I feel like we are on this earth for such a short time, as far as we know. I don't know, maybe we get multiple lives. Who knows? Maybe that would be nice, but I don't know for sure. So I just feel like I want to try to have some bit of impact every single day that I'm on this earth. And I just feel like if you can make someone laugh a little bit and think about challenge a little bit differently, then that is impact.
Why do you think this way? Where did this all come about for you?
Well, so as you know, I like adventures. I like remote extreme environments, right? I served as the team captain for the first American women's Everest expedition. I've climbed the highest peak on all 7 continents, skied to both the North and the South Pole. I like going to these remote places, and I'll get more into that in a little bit, because it's stories. That's why I'm so excited to be here with you, because it's stories that I was exposed to when I was younger that led me onto this path. But anyway, when I've been on a mountain and I felt like I was at my worst, I can't go on. I don't think I can take one more step. I don't know how I'm going to do this. I am cold. I am scared. I am feeling completely intimidated by this mountain. Sometimes just a few kind words of support from somebody else on my team or somebody that's passing me along the route has changed the entire situation for me, has changed my entire outlook. And I've seen that has worked when I can share a few kind words of support to somebody who's struggling. I've seen things completely turn around. And what I realize is that it doesn't cost anything. It doesn't take any special training to just share a few words of encouragement with someone. And I've seen people who thought they couldn't go on one more step go on to reach the summit of Mount Everest because somebody encouraged them a little bit along the way. And I've seen people who I thought could make it to the summit of a mountain give up and turn back and head back down because they lost confidence. And so sometimes just a few kind words can completely change the outcome of a situation, or can completely change somebody's life. So for me, that's kind of how I came to feel like if I can share a few kind words of support with somebody every day, I have no idea what that's going to do for that person. I know it's not going to hurt them for sure, but who knows what it could encourage them to go on to achieve.
There's a couple of questions coming from that response. I love that, by the way. The first one is, and I guess we should start right there. You mentioned stories.
Yeah.
Was there a series of stories that sort of got you interested in this, or was there just one
Yeah.
in particular that just sort of like stands out to you?
Okay, so when I grew up in Phoenix, Arizona, and for those of you who are not familiar with Phoenix, Arizona, it is probably the hottest place. It gets the highest temperatures on record of anywhere in the United States. It is so darn hot. I think Death Valley gets a little bit hotter, but Death Valley, you can tell from the name right there, you do not want to live there. So Phoenix, Arizona gets incredibly hot. And forgive me, I don't know what it is in Celsius, but it gets to like 120 degrees, 125 degrees. It's so freaking hot. So when I was younger, when I was growing up in Phoenix, I would read the stories of the early Arctic and Antarctic explorers, the early mountaineers, and I would read these books and I would watch documentaries because these stories provided an escape for me. It was an escape from the oppressive heat during the summertime. But I never actually thought I would go to those places because, long story short, I was born with a hole in my heart. I've had 3 heart surgeries, and my first heart surgery when I was 17 was not successful. But my second one, when I turned 30, was successful. And at that point, a few months later, this light bulb went on in my head. And I thought, if I want to be, Reinhold Messner, who's, probably one of the most successful modern day explorers, he's from Italy. He's Italian, but he lives in Austria now. But if I want to be, Reinhold Messner and ski across 600 miles of Antarctic ice to the South Pole, then I should go do that instead of just reading about it. If I want to know what it's like to be these mountaineers going to these big mountain ranges in these remote parts of the world, then I should go to the mountain ranges instead of just watching documentaries about them. And if these other guys can go do this stuff, why can't I do it too? So I climbed my first mountain when I turned 32, and I'm about to turn 55, and I haven't stopped yet.
You don't look 55. Let me just say that.
Thank you. I love you for that.
You still look like you're in your 20s or 30s, to be honest with you. Like, for those people that are actually watching the video, like, I'm not kidding.
I want to come back on this show many more times.
The flattery is real. Like, and I'm not just saying it. Like, it is real. Like, for those people that are wondering, when you did actually climb your first mountain, was it anything like those stories that you had read or heard about, or was it something completely different for you?
So I wanted to make sure that I not only read about successful attempts on these mountains, but I also read about the unsuccessful ones, about the disasters, about the unfortunate things that happen, just so I could be very, very prepared. And so I try to learn as much as I can from these stories. And a lot of times, you read books, but it's not always the whole story. As you know, from doing this podcast, there's a lot of ways to get stories, and reading books is one small way, right? Oh, yeah. So I love to learn. I would study, as much information. I would Google as much information, just try to draw as much information as I could to make sure that I was setting myself up for success. Now, I think that one thing you have to really remind yourself of when you're doing adventures like this is you have to be very clear about what your goal is. So for me, the goal is not to get to the top of the mountain. The goal always has to be come back alive, right? So what you have to keep in mind is that the top of a mountain, whether it's Mount Everest or any other big mountain that you're climbing, the summit is the halfway point. That's it. The summit is the halfway point. You have to know yourself well enough to be able to get yourself to the summit and then get yourself back down alive. And so for me, just connecting with the stories of other mountaineers and other explorers and other adventurers and reading about what went right and what went wrong and thinking about what would I have done in that situation. So it was those stories, I think, that not only spurred my interest in going to the mountains, but really helped me figure out my strategy for, getting to the top, if that was in the cards, and getting back down the line.
So before you decided to climb your first ever mountain, you were in, I believe, a corporate sort of environment, corporate setting. Can you talk us through that story of your life, or what actually happened?
Yeah. So I I never really thought I would end up in corporate America. So I worked on Wall Street. I worked for this huge investment bank, Goldman Sachs. And the funny thing is I always thought that I wanted to start an adventure travel company. But I didn't have any formal business training. I didn't know anything about accounting or finance or anything like that. And so I applied to business school. I applied to get an MBA, and I went to Duke University. And when I was there, I thought, okay, well, if I want to learn about accounting and finance, I should try to get a job on Wall Street for the summer. But I'll never really want to work in that job. I just want it for the summer. Well, my classmates were telling me, you're not going to get it. You're not going to get a job on Wall Street because you're a liberal arts major. You went to a big state university. The people that get the big Wall Street jobs, they went to private schools and they have experience in accounting and finance and stuff. And so what happened was every time I had a break from business school, we were on 6-week terms, and we would have a break in between every 6 weeks. Well, most of my classmates would go to New York, and they would go to Week on Wall Street, this week where you can go meet all the people that are hiring at the Wall Street firms, and you go and you schmooze and you network. And I wanted to go to the mountains in every break I had. So I would go to the mountains while all my classmates were schmoozing at Week on Wall Street, but I would write these postcards to the investment banks. So I'd be high up on a mountain in South America, and I would write a postcard to whoever's, doing the hiring at JP Morgan or Morgan Stanley or Goldman. And I would say, hey, I'm sorry that I'm missing Week on Wall Street. I know you're meeting most of my classmates this week, but I'm currently at, 20,000 feet on Mount Aconcagua in Argentina. So I can't be there. I'm like, but I'm looking forward to meeting you in person when I get back. And I would have a pre-stamped postcard, and I would hand it to whoever was climbing down the mountain. Oh, are you going back down? Well, when you get to a mailbox, can you pop this in the mail for me? And so my postcards would get mailed. Well, I ended up getting interviews with like every major Wall Street firm and got a bunch of offers, and ended up taking a job at the summer with Goldman Sachs. And I got the job not because I was the best candidate, because clearly I knew nothing about accounting or finance. I was a liberal arts major. I had no idea what I was doing, but because I was different, right? Because I showed them that I was tenacious, right? Like I'm on this mountain, but I'm still taking the time to send them a postcard. I'm creative. I can find ways to do things, that might not be the most convenient way, but I'm still going to get it done. Mm-hmm. And so I ended up getting a summer internship with Goldman. And I thought, oh, well, I'll never want to work here full time because this isn't my thing. But I want to do it for the summer. And then I did it for the summer, and I ended up I loved the firm. I'll be honest. I did not like the job at all. And I sucked at the job. I was not good at it, but I loved the firm and I loved the people. I loved the firm because I felt like they hired people who got shit done. Like when someone said they were going to get something done, they got it done. And if someone said they were going to get a report to you by Tuesday morning at 7 a.m., they got it to you by Tuesday at 7 a.m. And I place a high value on knowing I can rely on people, right? Because when I'm in the mountains, when I'm at, trying to ski to the South Pole across 600 miles of Antarctic ice, like I got to know I can count on the people around me. So that's why I like it. So I ended up getting an offer to go back full time, and I took the job. I had student loans I had to pay off, $70,000 in loans. And I actually stayed there 3 years, and I did love the firm and love the people, but hated the job and was terrible at it.
Wow. I love those sort of people that tell you they're going to do something and they actually get it done. Like,
yeah.
It's like you're pulling your hair out every single time. Like you're waiting for someone to get something done for you. I love those like people who's like, it's reliability.
You can count on people. Yeah. In my book, I have a chapter on having a mantra, 3 words or 4 words or however many words, 20 is too many, but just have a few words that describe you. And my mantra is count on me. I want people to know that when I say I'm going to do something, I freaking get it done. When I say I'm going to, come through, I come through. And so I place a high value on that. Those are like 3 words that are very important to me.
It's a very good mantra to have. How long were you at Goldman Sachs for?
So I was only there for 3 years. And while I was there, I got an offer, an invitation to serve as the team captain for the first American women's Everest expedition. And I thought, oh, I can't do it. I just got this new job. I have $70,000 of debt. I can't afford to lose this job. And it was a high 5-figure income. People think when you work on Wall Street or you work at Goldman, you're making 6 figures or 7 figures. I made a decent 5-figure income. So it wasn't, and I'm appreciative of that, but I had $70,000 of debt. I was living in San Francisco, a really expensive city. So I wasn't living large by any means on this, 5-figure income. But I thought I still can't afford to lose this job. I have all this debt. I have bills. But I thought there's only going to be one first American women's Everest expedition. And I felt like also like, I don't know if I'm going to be good enough. I don't know if I'm going to be fast enough. I don't know if I'm going to be strong enough to do a trip like this, but like, there's only going to be one first one. And if I don't step up to the plate, to serve as a team captain, somebody else is going to do it. Someone else is going to be living my dream adventure. So I ended up taking a leave of absence from Goldman with the first year I was there full time. Or I guess it was my second year that I was there. The first year I was in the training program, but first year in the actual job. And they gave me an unpaid leave of absence for 2 months so I could go to the mountains. So I'm also very appreciative of that. I also it's a good lesson for people to remember that you might be scared to ask for something, to ask for time off or some kind of special treatment or something. But if you don't ask, you're for sure not going to get it. And you might as well ask, because the worst thing you can hear is the word no. And so what, rejection is just one person's opinion at one point in time. That's all it is. It doesn't define you. So don't ever be afraid of rejection.
My grandfather used to have a saying. He's like, pretty much exactly what you said. He's like, if you don't ask, you don't get. So don't be afraid to ask. And I think a lot of people, they put fear in front of them, and that stops them from actually taking the step forward in what they actually want to do. Like, they always start to focus on the what if this happens, and they always start to picture the worst possible scenario. And I think the moment we get confronted with no, which is basically rejection, that's all it is anyway.
Right.
And it's a painful experience for each and every one of us to actually go through that no, but in fact it is actually the best thing that we need.
Yes. And also, when you hear no, you can't just think, oh, okay, and walk away. You ask why. Ask the person why. I'm just curious as to why you're giving me a no on this. And sometimes when they explain it, then you have an opportunity to overcome that objection, and no turns into a yes. When I was trying to raise money for the first American women's Everest expedition, we were sponsored by the Ford Motor Company. They initially said no to us. And then I went back and I said, you know what? I think you are making a big mistake here. And here's why I think you're making a mistake. Here's why I think you should say yes. And then the guy left me a message. He left me a voicemail. I called back. I wasn't able to pick up the phone, but he said, look, I don't know whether you just caught me at a weak moment or if it's that my daughter's name is Allison, but I'm going to change my mind on this. And then the Ford sponsored us. And then there was an American Women's Everest expedition, which if I had just listened to the no and went, oh, bummer, we might not have ever had an opportunity to do that. And that trip changed the course of my future. And so when you hear a no, like, you got to ask why. A friend of mine, Kara Golden, she is the CEO and founder of a company called Hint Water. And she wrote a book called Undaunted. And she talks about how she always believed when she was growing up that no means maybe and maybe means yes. I'm like, oh, I like that. No means maybe means yes. But whenever you hear a no, you have to ask why. You have to ask why. And sometimes the whole situation will turn around simply because you ask why.
I know Kara. She was one of my very first guests on
Oh, you
show.
do?
Yes.
She's a really good friend. She's from Arizona too.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's such a small world, isn't it? And Kara's story is honestly insane. It's very inspirational, and I love it.
I love her story.
What she's been able to build despite everything that she's no doubt had to go through, and just be a pioneer, be a leader in the space. So
yeah.
She's
also a dog lover like we are, by the way.
I know she is. During our interview, I think it was either her kids or her dogs were barking. But I love the notion of, turning a no into a yes and asking the question why. I have a philosophy of, building this, starting from literally the ground zero. It's only a year and 3 months old. And where it's come from to where it is now. If I had because I got a lot of rejection starting off. In fact, I still get a ton of rejection now, but I look at it as, if they say no to me, I say not now.
Right.
So for me, because there's a couple of people that actually said no to me in the very beginning, and I persisted. I was like, no, I want you on the show. I'm going to wait a little bit. It's probably not the right time for you right now. So when it is the right time, I'm going to come back to you and then show you how much this has grown, how much I've hopefully improved. And then maybe it might be worth your time, because people's time is the most valuable thing that
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. It is. And, but I think you're right that no often means just not right now.
Mm.
Sometimes no just means not right now. So you got to come back. But you're right. I always look at this too, as time is our most valuable commodity, right? It's our most valuable commodity. And so I always feel like when I'm telling these stories, because that's what I do for a living now, right? I tell stories for a living. I work full-time as a keynote speaker, sharing stories from these various extreme environments that I'm in. And I know that people are never going to get that time back. You know, they're going to give me a half hour or 45 minutes or an hour of their time, whatever length it is. They are never going to get that time back. So I better damn well deliver something that is going to make them feel like they were glad they spent that time with me. So that's what's going on in my head. You know, even just doing this podcast, I'm like, oh, I want to make sure people feel like they get something out of this. And because that's their time, right? You're never going to get this time back.
I have no doubt that they are already getting something from this. And can I just say, you have my dream job right now.
Really?
Being able to speak full time and tell stories. Like, I want to do the same thing. I want to speak.
I think what you're doing is amazing, because I'm just sharing my story. You're sharing a lot of people's stories. So the impact that you can have really is tremendous in doing this podcast. So I just want to say thank you again for the opportunity to be your guest today.
No, the honor is really all mine. And I love this. You know, this is why I do what I do, because stories enable us to connect with one another. Yeah. They can help. They are challenging and inspiring, motivating. They educate people. They're just they're the essence of us being alive. Without stories, we would literally cease to be human. We would just not be existent. It'd be very boring existent at that without stories. Like from the moment you're born, that is a story, that is a purpose. And that's what I tell people all the time. So anyway, shifting back to you a little bit, the most challenging time for you, either climbing a mountain or doing something really, really intense, surviving sub-zero temperatures, that you felt like you couldn't go on?
Well, so it's funny because you brought up that quote from my website, which says, sometimes you look up at a mountain and think, I can't, and then you climb it anyway. And I definitely felt like that. So on Mount Everest, when I was the team captain for the first American women's Everest expedition in 2002, we got to within 275 feet, I don't know what that is, of 70 meters or so from the summit, and we had to turn back in bad weather. So obviously it's disappointing, right? It's a very high profile failure. We're the first American women's Everest expedition. We had all this media coverage and we didn't make it. So being part of a high profile failure doesn't feel good. It feels like a punch in the gut. Everyone's talking about the fact that you had this goal and you didn't get there. And then, we were all over the news. Oh, they didn't make it. They didn't get there. They didn't do it. So I had an opportunity to go back to the mountain 8 years later. And I went back and I remember being on the summit ridge, right? Heading to the summit. And it is, an 8,000 foot drop on one side of that ridge, 10,000 foot drop on the other. I don't know what it's, I guess like 2,400 meters for your audience, 2,400 meters on one side and 3,000 meters on the other. And it's this knife edge ridge on the way to the summit. And weather came in 2010, just like it did in 2002. And I'm getting pelted in the face with ice. And, the winds picked up. It was snowing. It dumped about a foot of snow, whatever that, a third of a meter of snow. If you guys saw, I'm in like US mode, US measurement.
Don't worry about the stats or anything like that.
Okay. And
how it is, it's all good.
And I just felt like and all this doubt crept in, right? I'm not going to be good enough. I'm not going to be fast enough. I'm not going to be strong enough. But that's when I realized that you actually don't have to be the best and the fastest and the strongest. You just have to be able to put one foot in front of the other. And I was panicking because visibility was so bad. My heart was racing. Like I was sweating, from just nerves. And it's bad to sweat on Mount Everest because your sweat freezes and then you could become hypothermic. So you really don't want to sweat on Mount Everest. But I remember just thinking, I can't do this. I can't do this. And then, well, hang on, because I just put, if I just put one foot in front of the other, and I don't have to be able to see what's coming down the trail. I don't have to know what's coming at me in order to just put one foot in front of the other. I can keep doing that, even though I don't have perfect visibility. And so for me, it was kind of this life-changing moment, because I had always been so caught up in, am I going to be fast enough? Am I going to be strong enough? It doesn't matter. You don't have to be fast. You don't have to be strong. You do have to be relentless. You do have to be willing to put one foot in front of the other, even when you can't see that far in front of you. When you can't see anything in front of you, when it's completely socked in with the clouds and, the weather is terrible, you have to know that you can just take one more step. And that's how you get to the top of a mountain. You just take one more step, a gazillion times, but you just take one step at a time. So for me, it really changed my philosophy, and it helped me to not get really overwhelmed when I was in difficult situations that felt very intimidating to me. I thought, okay, I'm just going to break this down, take it one step at a time. And the other thing that I learned is that you can be scared and brave at the same time. You can be scared and brave at the same time. And when you're scared, that's not a reason to retreat, right? Being scared is not a reason to retreat.
So for a young person right now that is suffering from a lot of self-doubt, they don't know where they should go, they've literally got no sense of hope, what would you say to them?
First of all, there's always hope. If nothing else, there's always hope. So hope is something that comes from within you, right? So there's technique and ability that comes from experience and maybe from observing others and climbing with others. And maybe it comes from watching YouTube videos or practice or whatever, like all this stuff. Technique and ability comes from that. But hope is just something that comes from your heart. And everybody has that. And the same voice that tells you that this situation is bad, you just have to train that voice to speak to you differently, because that is the same voice that can tell you that there is hope and that you can keep going. And you can, no matter how hopeless the situation feels, you can always put one foot in front of the other, can always take one more step. And once you take that step, then you realize you can take one more. And then you can take one more after that. So just realize, like, technique and ability are going to get you so far, but it's hope and resilience and willpower. That's what's going to get you to the top of whatever figurative mountain that you feel like you're climbing, and the literal mountains as well. But look, we've all been climbing a big mountain with COVID over the past year. Like, we have all felt like we are climbing this mountain. But I just want people to remember, even though you might feel a little bit isolated because you're working remotely or doing things remotely, even though you're isolated, you're not alone. There's a difference between being isolated and being alone, and you are not alone. There are people out there who care about you, who are cheering for you, even if they're not sitting right next to you. And that's why I say, like, don't ever forget that a few kind words of encouragement, just being there to support somebody who is struggling, can completely change the outcome of a situation and can change somebody's life.
Was anyone there with you during that climb that you were thinking, oh, I got to put one foot in front of the other? And then my follow-up question to that is, so what if no one is there to give you those words of encouragement, and it's just you and you alone?
So it's amazing what happened to me on that second climb, because it's 2010, 8 years after my failed attempt. And as I mentioned, the storm is raging, the route's in terrible condition. I'm getting pelted in the face with ice. Every time you breathe in, like, you feel like you are breathing in shards of glass. It is so cold. Like, it feels okay when you've got your oxygen mask on, but if you take it off, to do anything, to talk to somebody, it just feels like you're swallowing glass. And so I remember in 2010, my second attempt, 8 years after my failed attempt, and I get to this place called the South Summit of Mount Everest. It's just a couple hundred feet below the true summit of Mount Everest. And I'm approaching that. And like I said, visibility is bad. And I hear this voice go, Alison, hey, Alison. And I'm like, what the hell? I'm like, who the hell is trying to talk to me right now? Like, I am trying to concentrate. I am on this narrow summit ridge. I am scared. I need to just put one foot in front of the other. Why the hell is somebody trying to talk to me right now? I'm like, maybe it's my imagination, but I hear it again. Alison, Alison. I'm like, what the fuck? What do you want? And it's this guide. His name is Michael Horst. He's from the Seattle area. And it's a strong guy, about 6'4", summited Everest, I don't know how many times. But he's standing at the South Summit, which is where I had turned around 8 years prior. And I was like, what? Like, I get up there, I'm like, what? What do you want? And I'm super annoyed that somebody's trying to talk to me because I need to be focused. And he goes, I need you to promise me something. And I was like, what? And I'm like, again, like very annoyed. I'm like, what? What do you want? And he goes, I need you to promise me that you're going to go further than this being the place where we were standing, this being the place where he knew I had turned around 8 years prior. Like that spot where we were standing was the last known spot to me because I had no idea what existed beyond that because I'd never been further than that on the mountain. And the fact that he waited there for me and he's like, you got to promise me you're going to go further than this. And I just held out my hand with this big down mitt over it, this big bright orange down mitt. And we shook hands on that promise. And I was like, I never break a promise to a friend, right? Count on me. I'm the person you can count on. I say I'm going to do something, do it. And so just the fact that he knew my story, He knew I had turned around 8 years prior at that spot. He anticipated that I might be feeling some fear or anxiety, and he waited there to give me a boost of confidence. And just knowing that somebody was cheering for me, that somebody wanted me to succeed, I was like, there's no effing way I'm turning around now. Like, I'm going for it. And like I promised Michael I was going to go, and I am going. And I would take my step, and 5 breaths and step again, 5 breaths. But just his encouragement meant so much to me. And it gave me that extra oomph, that extra energy, the extra boost of confidence to keep going, even though I didn't know what was laying ahead. And so he wasn't actually climbing with me that day, but he was on the mountain that day. And so for me, again, that was a kind of a life-changing moment for me to remember that even if I look around, there's no one with me, like who's coming up behind me? Who's behind me still that might need a boost? Maybe I should wait around and let that person catch up. And once they catch up to me, I can be like Michael Horst. I can be the person that gives them the boost that they might need. Look, maybe they need a boost, maybe they don't, but it's never going to hurt. Right. So I think having him there now, had I been on my own, because I have been in situations on my own where there is no one there to give me a boost. So then that voice has to come from me. And just knowing that I've been in places before where I thought for sure I was going to quit and I didn't, what I do when I start to feel that doubt creep in, because I still feel fear. I still feel doubt. I literally stop in my tracks wherever I am. I just stop myself and I stand completely still for a second and I go, listen, get your shit together now, right? Get it together. Get rid of this doubt in your head. You have been in similar situations to this before and you kept going and you did it. So you can do it again now. And once you've pushed past fear and anxiety, and you've achieved something you didn't think you could achieve, you can do it again in the future when you feel that fear and that doubt creeping into your head again. So everyone has that voice in their head. All of you listening to this, you have that voice that tells you can do it, and you just have to listen to it. And if you're not going to listen to your voice telling you can do it, then replay this podcast and listen to me. Listen to my voice telling you that you can do it, because you can. It is just about putting one foot in front of the other, and all of you can do that. When you're in a tough situation, you can all do that.
Wow. Go back and rewind that, people. I think the more that we tell ourselves, or the more we listen to this kind of advice, the more we start to believe it, and the more that is going to help us move forward and take that step forward to in the right direction, not the wrong direction, because you want to be constantly moving forward in the right direction. There's so many different paths that we can all take, but we should be taking the right path. And if you take the wrong path, it's all right. You can steer towards the right one. But you just got to believe that you can first. You don't get stuck or bogged down in the hardship or the pain that life can obviously bring. You got to pivot and move.
Yeah, that's exactly right. That's exactly right.
And also I want to second this as well. Like, if no one is with you, just imagine that people are with you, because even though you can't see them, there are no doubt people that are cheering you on.
Yes.
Just imagine that they are there. And that's what I do as well. Whenever I'm doing like a run or something crazy, I just imagine not only the end, but I imagine my cheer squad alongside me.
Yes.
Yes. Keep going. Don't stop. So, and you've written this pretty incredible book. Now, I don't have my own copy, which I'd love to get a copy one day, but it's called On the Edge: Leadership Lessons from Mount Everest and Other Extreme Environments. What was the hardest part about writing that book?
So the hardest part was, I think, some of the chapters where I failed to use good judgment or I failed to be prepared. So every chapter of the book, On the Edge, is a different story from one of my expeditions. You can read one chapter and put the book down, read another chapter and put it down. But there are chapters where I really, really screwed things up. And so it's kind of hard to write about that, because especially as a person, I make a living as a leadership speaker, and I talk about making good decisions. So to have to write about the times where things didn't go well because of my poor judgment, that's kind of hard to do. But you have to take ownership of your mistakes. You have to be able to look back and evaluate the things that didn't go well and figure out what you're going to do differently the next time. And I also look at it as, perhaps my failures and me coming clean with things I did not do well. Maybe that will help somebody prevent a mistake in the future where they could get injured or God forbid, even killed. Maybe me coming clean with this stuff will help other people be more successful. So, you always have to look at your failures as a stepping stone to success. And also, you never know, like, who's going to be following in your footsteps down the road, who will go on to achieve really great things, even if you didn't have the outcome that you wanted at the time. So that's why I felt it was important to share the stories of things I did that I'm not proud of, or things that didn't go so well. But I did put cute pictures of my dog in the book to help like alleviate some of the tension in the book.
I have no doubt for those people that absolutely love dogs, that would actually help. But
it was funny because my publisher's like, what? Because there's all these pictures of the book, like from my expeditions in these mountains, these polar environments. And then there's pictures of my dog. And he goes, wait, why are there pictures of your dog in this book? Like, I'm like, because I love my dog. He's like, yeah, this isn't a family photo album. This is a business leadership book. And I said, well, look, either pictures of my dog go in this book or no pictures at all go in the book. I'm like, so if you want my expedition pictures, like, you're going to have to print pictures of my dog too.
Gave him an ultimatum.
Yeah.
I love it. And it actually worked. So well done. So for those people that were to pick up the book right now and turn to any chapter or any page in the book, just one that you can pick. Yeah. What one would you recommend that they turn to? They can get a renewed perspective on life.
So chapter 6, it's about my South Pole expedition. This is the expedition. It was a 600-mile ski traverse from the edge of the West Antarctic continent all the way to the South Pole. My mantra, count on me, right? So I'm going to train. I'm going to be prepared. I'm going to work hard. I want to be the MVP, the most valuable player on my team. So I did everything I could possibly do because I was going to be a strong teammate. Because let's face it, like, we don't want weak people on our teams, right? They just hold us back and, prevent us from making the progress we need to prevent. So that's not going to be me. So I trained, I did everything I could do. We get dropped off at the edge of the Antarctic continent. It is the coldest, windiest place on Earth. Antarctica, 5.5 million square miles of solid ice. This continent is 98% ice, 2% rock. We've got to ski 600 miles. We're pulling a 150-pound sled that's harnessed to our waist with all our gear and supplies. So we start skiing. First couple days, I'm the slowest, weakest person on the team. I thought, okay, hang on. Maybe I just need to get used to the environment. It's so cold here. I'm from Phoenix. This is a huge change for me. Well, after a week's time, I didn't get any better. I didn't get any faster. I didn't get any stronger. I was by far the slowest, weakest person on the team, because basically the law of physics dictates that somebody that is 6 foot, I'm 5'4", what is it, 162.5 centimeters or whatever. Someone that is a full foot taller than me and twice my weight is going to be able to haul that 150-pound sled a lot more quickly and a lot more efficiently than I can. So no matter how hard I tried, I could not keep up with my team. And this just really tore at my heart, because I thought, oh my God, I am that person, that weak teammate that I always thought I didn't have, I never had patience for weak teammates in the past, right? Oh, this person, they're lazy. They didn't work hard enough. They didn't prepare. They didn't try hard enough. They have an attitude problem, whatever. How come they can't perform like the rest of us? I just thought it was their fault. Well, then I realized that sometimes people their skills just don't measure up to the people around them. And it's not because of lack of effort or lack of motivation. For me, it was the law of physics. Well, my teammates, they had to take weight out of my sled, and they had to make their sleds heavier so that my sled was lighter so that I could keep up. But they did it in a very sneaky way where they thought I didn't know what they were doing, but I actually knew because I had overheard them talking about it in their tent. But for me, it meant so much to me. They didn't count, they didn't say, hey, Alison, look, you're slowing us down. We're going to run out of food and fuel if we have to keep going this slow. So we'll take some weight out of your sled. We'll put it in our sleds and we'll carry more than we should so that you can keep up. That is not what they did. They snuck weight. It's a long story, it's probably too long for context, but they did it in a sneaky way where they were sneaky about taking the weight out of my sled, and they didn't think that I knew, but I did. I knew because I overheard them. And, but after they did that, I was trying to figure out, what am I going to do to pay these guys back, right, for carrying this extra weight in their sleds? Well, these really tall guys, they had trouble. We had to shovel snow every night to build a snow barricade around our tents to protect it from the elements. So every single night after you ski for 12 or 15 hours, you pitch your tent, then you got to build a snow wall around it with shoveling snow and ice. It's back-breaking work, especially if you're tall. To lean over and use a short snow shovel, it kills your back. Well, I'm shorter to the ground. I can use a short snow shovel more easily than these other guys. So every night at the end of the day, when we were done skiing, I grabbed that snow shovel and I built the snow barricade around their tent for them, because I knew what they had done with taking the weight out of my sled. And it was such a great lesson for me in that we all have an area where we can shine. We all have a superpower, right? But if we are so focused on comparing ourselves to other people in areas where they are strong, right? I just thought I'm worthless. I'm a worthless person to my team because I am not as fast and as strong as my other teammates. But if we compare ourselves to other people in areas where they are strong, we may never uncover what makes us truly shine. And for me, being short ended up to be an advantage when it came to shoveling snow, but it was a disadvantage when it came to pulling the weight in my sled. But I automatically just thought, I'm a terrible teammate. Nobody wants me here. These guys must really regret having allowed me to join this team. But the way they handled the situation, the way they addressed my weakness really sent me this strong message that they wanted me to succeed. They wanted me to be part of the team. And that just went so far with me. Not only did they, take the weight out of my sled, but they took a psychic load of weight off my shoulders by the way they handled it, by letting me keep my pride intact, by sending me a strong message that they wanted me to be part of the team. And that's what a true leader does. That's what a good leader does, is he finds ways to help every single person on the team shine. He or she finds ways to help everyone find that sweet spot, that superpower where they can really contribute.
I love that story. I have a framed picture in my bedroom. I should actually have it here, but I've got it in my bedroom on top of my bed. And it's of this very thing, what a leader is compared to what a boss is. A boss sits on the throne with the whip, cracking it, and makes the people actually feel like they're low and below them. Whereas a leader leads from the front. He shows people, this is exactly why I need to move forward. I'm going to help you. And by doing that, I'm going to show everyone. And I'm not going to make you feel less of a human being, because we're all equal. We're all humans here.
By the way, he was the greatest leader I've ever encountered. And I forgot to mention, he is Australian and his name is Eric Phillips. And he is one of the most accomplished polar explorers out there. And his leadership style and philosophy completely changed the way I look at leadership. He is an extraordinary leader. And so my chapter 6 in my book is about Eric Phillips, the amazing polar explorer, polar leader from Australia.
I love that. Shout out to the Australian explorer on leadership.
Yeah.
It's so cool. Alison, I do want to be mindful of your time. I have to get you back on the show so we can talk about.
I would love to. I would love to come back again.
Your Everest trip. But my final question for you, before I ask it, where can people buy the book and learn more about you?
Wait, I know for anyone watching on video, here it is. It's called On the Edge, Leadership Lessons from Everest and Other Extreme Environments. And you can get it on Amazon. That's probably the easiest place. Or I don't know, I doubt your local bookstores will have it, but Amazon's probably the best bet.
Okay.
And also, if any of you have questions, any of you listening have questions, feel free to email me through my website. There's a little form on there. You can send emails to me. And if you email me through my website, your email will come right to me, not to my assistant, because I don't have one. But I promise you that I will respond to any questions that come in. So I'd love to hear from any of you. Feel free to reach out. And I'm just so honored to have had the opportunity to speak to all of you today.
Oh, that's probably one of the reasons why I don't have an assistant, is because I love having that personal approach. It's like people actually know it's you. So
yeah,
it's fantastic. So I'll make sure that all the links are in the show notes below. But my final question for you, Alison, this is my all-time favorite question I ask everyone at the end. The hypothetical one. So I want you to imagine with me for a moment that you've been able to reach the age of 100. All your friends and your family have decided to put together a film for you of everything you've ever said and everything you've ever done. I have no doubt that it'd be wild and adventurous and absolutely crazy, but don't ask me how they got it all. We'll call it magic for the sake of an argument. They've been able to get it and show it to you on your 100th birthday. What do you want that film to say and to show about your life?
I want that film to say she was the best dog mom. That's for one thing, but best dog mom. And I would like the film to just say, she made people laugh, she made people think, and she made people think that they could climb any mountain.
I feel like that is a perfect way to sort of wrap up our conversation. Alison Levine, thank you so much for your time, your stories, your adventures. Continue to go on many, many more. Can't wait to have you back. But thank you so much for coming on the Storybox podcast today.
My pleasure. Thank you again for having me.